I now look to Richard Tice to close the case for the opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just take it back a step. The definition, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, of a populist, the Oxford Dictionary, is someone who seeks to support or to appeal to the interests of ordinary people. A noble theory that surely every politician should ascribe to. And yet the reality is that the majority of politicians merely seek to preserve the establishment status quo with a few twists and tweaks and adjustments here and there. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, exactly the opposite to this motion. Only populist leaders deliver real change. And the huge mistake, cataclysmic, that our proponents have made is that they've really only referred to government leaders, as opposed to leaders of campaigns who have delivered real change. And I'm going to give you 4 global examples over the last 100 years to prove that only populist leaders deliver real change. Firstly, 100 years ago, Emmeline Pankhurst campaigned for the right for women to have the vote. Unbelievable in this country that for 4 decades in the late 1800s, male MPs in Parliament rejected women having the right to vote. Not once, not twice, 4 times. Pankhurst created in 1903 the Women's Social and Political Union with a very simple motto that politicians would do well to ascribe to: deeds, not words. She was jailed a number of times. She went on hunger strikes, but she and her colleagues brought the issue massively up the political agenda, and then in the First World War, she created a patriotic campaign, Women's Right to Serve. And guess what? In 1918, women above the age of 30 secured and won the right to vote. Sadly, she died in 1928, just 1 month before women secured the right to vote, the same right to vote as men. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the first example of a leader, a populist, who delivered real, lasting change. For my second example, we're going to canter across to India. Mahatma Gandhi. He campaigned for home rule in India after hundreds of years of British rule. And if we're honest with ourselves, frankly, we didn't do a very good job. He was a lawyer. He spent 2 decades in South Africa campaigning for the lowest castes in society. He returned to India. He was jailed in 22 for sedition. He went on hunger strikes. His religious beliefs always told him that we must have non-violent, peaceful, but disruptive protest. In 1930, he started his Home Rule campaign. He was incredible, and he campaigned for another 17 years. He launched a campaign against the British salt tax. Extraordinary. Britain was taxing India on its own natural salt deposits. Eventually, he won the day in 1947, 17 years after campaigning. Amazing. Sadly, he was assassinated in 48. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a man who delivered real, lasting global change. My third example, we gallop down to South Africa. Nelson Mandela, one of the greatest of all time. He was the third example to take on the establishment that I'm giving you today. He took on the South African establishment. He took on the appalling notion of apartheid, where black people couldn't walk down the same street, they couldn't go in the same shop or get on the same bus or join the same sports team. Unbelievable. He took it on, and surprise, surprise, he was jailed in 1964. He conducted his own legal defense, and he concluded it with the immortal words, "This is an ideal for which..." I'd be grateful if you give me the courtesy of some quiet. I'll say that again, just because you didn't hear the first time. His legal defense was, "This is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." And he truly thought he was going to die in the brutal South African jails. 27 years he was jailed, and yet in 1991 he was released. Within 3 years, apartheid was gone, and he was fairly and democratically elected the first black president of South Africa. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the third most incredible example of delivering real, lasting change. And the fourth example, it probably won't surprise you, is my good friend, Nigel. For 25 years, he conducted a campaign against what he believed was a national wrong, that our sovereignty was being basically moved to another country by our own establishment, by our own civil servants. He had a sapling protest movement. But yet 20 years later, as the proponents have conceded, he delivered the most MEPs from the UK to Brussels. Incredible. He forced Cameron, through his own force of personality and success, to have a referendum that Parliament didn't want. The rest is history. And frankly, whatever your views about Brexit, mine are well known. It will deliver significant, in my view, positive, real change. The reality is, Nigel Farage, without question, has delivered real, lasting change for this great nation of ours. And let's just consider the real change from other leaders. Let's look at Cameron, Brown, Blair, Major. Ladies and gentlemen, what real change did those leaders deliver for the UK? I venture to say nothing compared to the 4 examples that I've just given you over the last 100 years. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I urge you with passion, with vigour and with belief to vote against this motion. Thank you very much.